Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, with a very important question for you today that we are going to pull apart. And it is, if everything were free and no one were watching, what would you do? And I am obsessed with this question right now. I've been pulling this question apart for myself. So of course I'm going to pull it apart with my clients, and I'm going to pull it apart with you here on the show. So the point of this particular question is a very simple yet a radical exercise to actually investigate identity and expose where you are out of alignment. So as a listener of the show, if you're new here, hi, welcome. If you're not, you know that I teach there are two things and two things only that create your reality, your identity and your energy. So this is really helping us, this particular question, this particular idea is really helping us figure out what identity is driving so that we can make changes, right? Because, and the way that I define identity, let's start there. Identity, I think, is like your internal operating system. I think that's the easiest way to describe it, right? It is the collection of beliefs that you hold about yourself, about the world, about money, business, health, relationships, people, all of the different things, right? It's the collection of all of the things. It's the operating system. It's how you view the world. And the challenge that so many people have with this particular concept is because the operating system that you are currently running is likely not one you chose, meaning it was programmed into you unintentionally or intentionally, who knows, right? But it was programmed into you primarily by the people who raised you, the part of the world that you were raised in. And then, as you got older and you got into your career and different things like that. So it's all the outside influences have given you a perspective, a view of the world, an operating system. That's what I refer to as identity. And the challenge that poses for so many people is that when you are running an operating system for a very long time, it starts to feel fixed. It starts to feel like there is not something that you can change, right? So you assume that you have no options or you have no choices, right? And I think that's a really important conversation that we're going to have here today, because in order to create your reality, well, you are always creating your reality, but in order to consciously create your reality, you want to think, feel, and act as the version of you who already has what you want, right? I teach this over and over and over again, and it is as simple as it sounds, right? They say simple, but not easy. But most people tend to get stuck because you have never been that version of yourself, and your current operating system feels really stuck. So I don't know how that person thinks and how that person feels and how that person acts, because maybe you've never run the type of business that the version of you wants to run, right? Or you've never lived, a certain way, or whatever the case may be. So this particular question really starts to pull out what those limiting beliefs are and really identify where we are out of alignment. Because if everything were free and no one were watching, what would you do? Because I think that most people are driven by two things subconsciously or unconsciously, meaning that you probably don't realize that this is what you were doing. But most of our decisions, specifically in business, because that's what we talk about here a lot on this show, are driven by two things, right? Money, what it costs or what it makes, and then other people, what they think and how it impacts them. And so when you are thinking about your business, your life, how you want it to be, you are often thinking about the financial resources needed to fund that life, right? And then you are also thinking about the people that it impacts, both negatively and positively. So let's pull this apart. I'm going to pull it into two separate things. I'm going to ask you some really great questions, but this podcast is really going to be about perspective shifts and really help you get into some reflection. So I want you to play around with this idea. If money were no object and had zero power over your decisions, what kind of work would you do? If money were no object, meaning that you were going to make the exact same amount of money no matter what choice that you make, and it really didn't matter what you chose, what kind of work would you do? And this is an excellent question because it immediately tells us, are you in an aligned career? Are you in an aligned business? Are you doing work that you actually enjoy? Because when it comes to being your free and rich self and living your free and rich life, if you are doing work that you hate, you are constantly going to have the foot on the brake of what you are capable of. I'm not saying that you cannot produce results doing something that you hate. I want to be very clear here. You absolutely positively can torture yourself and make a lot of money. I've done it. You've done it. Many people in the world do it. This is about your free and rich life, the life where you get to decide how you actually contribute to the world and how you actually call in money into your life. Remember, you are the creator of your reality. There are no rules here. So when we really start to think about that. And then I'm going to ask you a further question. So again, if money is no object, no matter what, you were going to make the amount of money you wanted to make, what kind of work would you do? But then I also want you to ask a further question. Why would I do that work? Why is that the work that I would do? Because I have the belief, and I teach this very deeply with my clients, the belief that everything that you want because of the way you think it will make you feel. So let's say, for instance, right now you are an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, and maybe you run a marketing agency, and you actually really hate doing done for you marketing services, and you would much rather just offer high level consulting, right? I just want to consult clients. I just want to do strategy. But however, the challenge going on in your life right now is the majority of your revenue is coming from done for you work, but you would really prefer to just do the strategy and actually not do any done for you work for your clients. This is just an example, right? But why? Why, right? Why do you only want to do the done for you, or why do you only want to do the strategy work? And then start asking yourself, because, I like doing the strategy work. I find the strategy work fun. It scratches my brain. I get to be creative. I get to get in and build and use my gifts and work with the business owner. And I just find it really fun to look at the big picture, right? Whatever your reasoning is, that is the feeling of your free and rich life. That is the feeling, one of the primary feelings of your free and rich life. So when we start thinking about identity and we start thinking about how would I think, how would I feel, and how would I act, now we're identifying the feeling. And so maybe that feeling is fun. Maybe it's expansive. Maybe it's exciting. That's why you want to do that work. It's what really challenges you in a good way, right? So really thinking about it in that perspective, right? The things that we want, again, we want them because of the things that we will make them feel. So when we strip away all these ideas around, we often think that we have to choose work. Like there's a belief system that like attorneys make a lot of money, or engineers make a lot of money, entrepreneurs make a lot of money, real estate agents make a lot of money. And a lot of people have chosen their careers and their career paths based on that idea. It makes a lot of money. But a lot of people actually don't enjoy the work that they're doing. So what we want to do is kind of challenge this idea is if I were just connected to my gifts and my purpose and impact, what work tickles your brain? What work feels rewarding? What work feels really, really exciting? And the reason why I ask the secondary question of how does it feel? Because oftentimes, I want to be clear, oftentimes with my clients, when I do this work, it's not actually a shift in industry. And I think this scares people because they're like, well, Ryan, what I would want to do is so wildly different. And I don't have the education for that. And I don't have the connections in that. And our brain immediately starts to tell us why we can't do the work we want to do. But I often find that the feeling that we think that type of work will give us is actually available in our current work. It's just not something we're focused on. So a lot of my clients, we are able to help restore them to those feelings of expansiveness, of rewarding, of exciting, of fulfilling in the exact same work once we really understand what is motivating it. That's why I love these perspective shifts and these kind of mind-bendy type questions, because they start to really bring to the surface so much of our stuff. But when we really think about it from that perspective, so that's one perspective. What kind of work would you do? Another one is, how would you be spending your money if money were no object? If there was just a never-ending pool of money that you had access to any time that you wanted, how would you be spending your money? What would you buy? What would you not buy? What would you be investing in? What would you not be investing in? Would you be investing in, and I'm talking about investments, maybe it's real estate in the stock market. I'm talking about investments, maybe it's coaching and support. I'm talking about, would you take the vacation or not take the vacation, right? Again, so many of the decisions that we make are dictated by money, and we don't even realize it because we think that there are no other options. So we've just kind of accidentally closed our brain off to the idea that if we just open our expansion just a little bit, we can see things differently. And this is just going to start telling us what we're excited about and what we're interested in. Because what I'm looking for always is the energy, because it's identity and energy, right? This also shows us, which I think is really exciting. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But when we get, I'm getting ahead of myself in my notes. This is why I literally wrote 3 notes. I'm already getting ahead of myself. But just asking yourself, if we took money out of the equation, if there was a never ending pot of money, what kind of work would I do? What kind of investments would I be making? And a lot is going to come up for you here, but so much is going to be revealed where you are letting money dictate your decisions. And I know that right now your brain is thinking, but Ryan, I don't have an unending pot of money. And that right there is very important. Write that thought down, because I'm going to address why that thought is important, because I'm going to explain what I'm identifying for you here. Moving on into if no one were watching, right? So we've talked about money. Take money out of the equation. What kind of work are we doing? What are the investments we're making? Now, if no one were watching, right? Removing the expectations, because this is also a really big one for high performers, is there tends to be a lot of people watching, right? You have 10, 15, 20 years of experience. Maybe you have an online audience. Maybe you're just a thought leader in your industry and people look to you to, for decision making. Or maybe this is just as simple as, I don't want to let down my family, or, so-and-so really expects this thing of me. But a lot of the decisions that I find women making are not decisions that they would make if there was nobody else involved, right? If nobody could call you crazy, ridiculous, insane, or irresponsible, what choice would you make right now that you are not currently making? This is such a revealing question, right? Because when we strip away so many of these thoughts, right, it instantly reveals how much power we give away to people's opinions, societal expectations. And again, how can I live my free and rich life? How can I be the most self-expressed version of myself? How can I be as happy as I could possibly be if I'm making decisions based on other people? And again, I know that your brain is giving you a million different reasons why you can't just do whatever the fuck you want because you got payroll to make and you got a husband and you got kids and tuition is expensive and marriage is expensive, weddings are expensive and blah, 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 blah. So I can't just make decisions for myself, Ryan. I know. I'm just asking you to suspend reality for long enough to think, how much of my life, how much of my power have I given away? This is meant to be diagnostic, and I'm going to tell you what to do with this information here in just a minute. But this is really going to tell you, like, would you start the YouTube channel? Like, would you start the YouTube channel? If nobody was going to laugh at you or tell you you were ridiculous or you're too old for that or you're stupid or you're not any good, would you start the YouTube channel? I don't know the answer to that question, but you do, right? Would you start an entirely new business? I don't know the answer to that, but you do. Would you quit the job? I don't know the answer to that, but really start thinking about how many of the decisions that you are making based upon optics, because that's really, really important. So why is this important? Why is this so important? Because when I think of free and rich, right? And free and rich is really just this huge baseline in my life right now. What does free and rich mean? And to me, free and rich, when I think of my free and rich life, when I think about the version of me who, has everything that I desire, that it's all rooted in choices. My free and rich life is rooted in choices, choosing how I spend my time, who I spend it with, what I charge for my services, the type of work that I do. Like, that is my free and rich life, is I get to choose. So if my free and rich life is that I get to choose, and so many of the decisions that I am making are actually not choices I would make if money and other people were not involved, I am immediately showing where I'm out of alignment. And what that tells us is what our limiting beliefs are. And so when I teach the free and rich creation process in the partner program, this is actually step one, right? Or step two of the process, right? Step one, I always say is creating the vision. But step two is understanding, what are the limiting beliefs that you currently have? What is the operating system that you are currently running that is not going to be able to go with you where you are? The operating system that I have to do things because other people expect them of me is not something that's going to get to go with you in this next version of you, right? To live your free and rich life, to have exactly what you want to have, we have to be willing to let go of those, examine those beliefs and then let them go, right? Examine them and let them go. And so many of what I actually wind up feeling is when so many people start sharing with me about their limiting beliefs and sharing with me what's coming up for them, so many of them are false. They are not true. They are stories. They are bullshit. They are excuses. They are other people's things. And so the reason why I want you to do this exercise is because when we start to expose where we're out of alignment, we start to realize that there's a lot of bullshit that we're like, fuck, I didn't even know I agreed to this. Like, so many of the things that I have uncovered about money, I had no idea that I had agreed to. It was just, I just thought that's the way it was. I thought that I didn't have a choice. I actually would have told you that I wasn't somebody who really gave a fuck what other people think. But when I asked myself that question, if nobody else were watching, right? If nobody else were weighing in, what would you be doing differently? And there were quite a few things that needed to be addressed in my life, and a lot of things, and I didn't even realize they were there because, again, an operating system that's just been running for so long, your brain likes efficiency, your brain likes familiarity. So it's always going to feed you the same things if you don't start questioning it. Okay. But here's what we're looking for. We're looking for, where are we operating using our operating system purely for money or for external expectation? Where are we doing things only because we are paid to do them? If I was not getting paid for this, I wouldn't do it. That is really important. It's a question I ask my clients very often. If there was no money being exchanged for this, would you be doing this? And if the answer is no, then that tells you where you're out of alignment. You're saying yes when you want to say no. You are abandoning yourself. Out of alignment, right? Static in your signal. This is why things aren't changing in your life, because you say yes when you want to say no, right? If you were making more money for it, there's some people that are like, well, I am getting paid for it. I don't mind getting paid for it, but I would want to be paid a whole lot more. Cool. Right? That also tells us where we're undercharging, or we're letting people underpay us, or we're undervaluing, or we're letting the market dictate our pricing. This is just revealing so many places in that world. So then when we go over to the external expectation, if everybody would be 100% and 10% supportive of the decision that you make, of that job change that you would make, it's just telling us where there is static in our signal. So I want to talk to you about universal law. I'm going to explain kind of what I'm trying to get at here, because there's two universal laws that I coach on very consistently. And so law of vibration says everything is energy, and the law of attraction says like energy attracts like energy. So we are all energy, and we are attracting our life experience. We are experiencing our life through that frequency. And so if my frequency is one of, I have to say yes when I want to say no, there is static in my signal. I cannot attract what it actually wants. I cannot experience what I actually want to experience because I keep telling myself that I have to experience this. I have to say yes when I want to say no. I can't experience this. I want it but, right? I want to have this type of life, or I want to have this type of business, or I want to have this type of experience, but I can't, ... tells us where our energy is attracting that. I can't. I don't have any choices. I'm powerless. It's not up to me. I am a victim of my circumstances. I'm a victim of my industry. It's not up to me. Do you hear these words? You don't realize that's what you're doing because you don't think you have a choice, but you do. You are always choosing in every single moment of every single day which version of yourself is showing up. Is the version of you that has to do shit that you hate or has to do things because other people expect it to you the one calling the shots in your life right now? Or is the version of you who believes that you can be, do, and have whatever the fuck you want calling the shots? And I understand that this is intimidating. It is scary because it's really fucking scary. Just all of a sudden decide I'm going to stop doing this thing that I've done forever. I understand that that is scary. But if we don't start even entertaining the idea, right? If we don't start even normalizing the idea of something different, we're always going to have a hard time calling it in. So when your signal is diluted, your energy is diluted by, again, forcing yourself into expectations, doing things that you don't like, doing things because so-and-so said so, you cannot be an energetic match to the life that you actually want. So I have two kind of action items for you. I have a couple of action items for you around this particular topic. But first of all is just realizing how far out of alignment you are. I always say that awareness is the first step. I don't know about you, but when I learned about this work, I did not realize how out of alignment I was. I just didn't know because I didn't know any different. I thought that life was supposed to be hard, and I thought that it was normal to be stressed out, and I thought it was normal to be chaotic. So it just didn't occur to me that I could choose to no longer operate that way. So if that's the stage of your journey, just asking these questions and letting your brain tell you like what's actually on your heart, what's actually on your mind, and see what actually comes up for you, they're going to be, I hope, be really excited and inspired by the things that come up, right? I get that. But that's also why I think that coaching is so important, because it is terrifying to put down an old belief system. Because when you put down the old belief system, your brain freaks the fuck out. Because remember, your brain's job is to keep you safe. And to your brain, safe is familiar. And right now, doing shit that you hate for money is familiar. Performing for money is familiar. Putting other people's needs before yourself is familiar. So your brain is always going to tell you that that is the right choice. It's always going to tell you to stay exactly the same. This is why so many people struggle with change. This is why so many people wake up every single Monday and they swear that they're not going to eat the food, and they're not going to spend the money, and they're not going to compare themselves, and they're not going to scroll social media. And they do it fucking anyway because they let the brain take them for a ride. You think that your brain is actually in charge, but it's not. You are. You are. So the first place to start, I always say, is my identity practice. The identity practice is completely free, and it is the easiest place for you to start actually thinking on purpose, thinking some of these thoughts, playing around with this. Like, I would take these questions to your identity practice. If I were the woman without money were no object and nobody were watching, how would I think? What are the thoughts that I would have? What were the thoughts I'd have about money? And what are the thoughts that I would have about my life? And what are the thoughts about how I spend my time? And really take it to your identity practice. But the second part of this is getting support, because when you have an operating system that has been installed so deeply that it feels true, being supportive is going to help you hold up the mirror. I honestly think that's one of the most valuable things I do for my clients is I actually hold up the mirror and I see you don't even realize you're saying this. Like the number of times I point out to my clients, do you hear what you just said? And is that aligned with what you want? They're like, oh gosh, no. They don't even realize it because, again, universal law works 100% of the time. So having support is so important. So if you are interested in a partner in your journey, because that is the work that I do, I am partnering with my clients. Yes, I am the coach, and we are working together on the thing, but it is a partnership. I have to put my money where my mouth is, and you have to show up and do the work. So the Free and Rich Partner Program is accepting applications. It's open enrollment. So there's not an open and a close. And I tell you that because people always ask me that question. How long do I have? Listen, as long as there are spots in the roster, it's available, and we're going to be talking about it. But I think that this is just such an important conversation for women, because if what came out of these reflection questions were entirely different than the life that you are living now, then then this is an opportunity for you to raise your hand and say, I am done living my life on other people's terms. I'm done letting money be my boss. I'm done letting other people be my boss. I'm done pretending that I am not the fucking creator of my reality. I want to partner with you. So I want you to go to the link in the bio, read all the details about the program. If it speaks to you, apply. The reason why it's an application program is because I am quite literally splitting the cost of the program with you. So this needs to be a hell yes for both of us. This is something I want you to put a lot of thought and intention into, because in a partnership program, it means we both have to show up at 100%. So if you are ready, go apply. If you're not ready yet, just keep taking these ideas to your identity practice. Keep playing around with the idea, if money were no object, what would I do? If nobody was watching, what would I do? If there were no expectations, if I couldn't piss anybody off, and just keep playing with those ideas. And I can't wait to see what comes up for you. And I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that that's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.